consider buying your processed oboe and bassoon cane from those friendly folks over at Barton Cane. Processed with care and precision for your everyday reed-making needs. Take the pain and injury out of reed-making by letting Barton Cane do the hard, repetitive, boring stuff. Free up time for practicing, happy hours, hikes, baking, and spending time with friends and family. Barton Cane, here for you. Visit www.bartoncane.com.
Specializing in the finest assortment of oboes, clarinets, bassoons, and their accessories, RDG Woodwinds serves musicians around the world. Their employees are all professional musicians who have a deep knowledge of the products that they sell. RDG's repair shop has an international reputation with a combined 100 plus years of service among the 5 repair technicians. Plain and simple, RDG provides excellent products and fabulous customer service. Visit them at rdgwoodwinds.com. They look forward to working with you.
Hi, I'm Galit Kaunitz.
And I'm Jackie Wilson, and you're listening to Double Reed Dish,
a podcast for oboists,
bassoonists,
and the people who love them.
Six-year anniversary dish.
6 years, can you believe it?
I feel like I'm celebrating 6 years with my spouse.
Which means that over 6 years ago, we would have already conceived of Double Reed Dish, and we're working behind the scenes to
Are we parents?
Launch it. Is Double Reed Dish our offspring? Maybe. But we did metaphorically recently give birth to a big project.
Oh my goodness. I'm so excited about
Don't
that.
worry, listeners, the birth metaphors are going to come to an end. That will not continue.
Well, yes, we have recently brought into this world our album, All Are Welcome, New Works for the Oboe and Bassoon. We recorded the works that were commissioned through the Double Reed Dish Commission Consortium. And this is our love letter to all of you. This is our just big kiss to all of the people who joined the consortium.
Yeah, it's super cool to see it all come to fruition. And it's interesting because I recently had a solo album come out too.
In the same week.
In the same week. And if I could get on my soapbox for just really quickly, it was interesting to watch those two processes. I was kind of going through the process with both albums at the same time, right? And I'm, of course, incredibly grateful for my job, incredibly grateful for the professional development support that I have through my position, grants, all of those things are wonderful. I would never look a gift horse in the mouth. But when I look at the timeline of that project and how much red tape and this has to get approved, that has to get approved, we have to go through this, then you have to go through that, versus our project, which was grassroots, self-funded. We paid for every single aspect of it. We own every single aspect of it. I mean, the label notwithstanding, but it was able to just go so quickly because we were in control of it all. And so not in every scenario will you be able to do that. That's a privilege that not every project will be able to have. But it, to me, was just kind of a really nice reminder of the importance of owning your own stuff and being independent of institutions when and where you can, and cultivating a side hustle or a primary hustle, and just owning your work and that type of thing. So that was really cool to see us as, albeit a small business, a woman of color owned small business, be completely in charge of the pace and finances of our own project. And Yeah, it was very gratifying. It made this particular experience gratifying in ways that the other one wasn't.
Well, we recorded in September and it's released in November.
Yeah,
That's bananas fast.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's, everything that you just said times a million. And, speaking of owning your own work, I mean, that is something that is especially important to you and part of your own personal artistic mission statement as a composer,
Hmm.
owning your own piece and self-publishing.
Yeah, and I've had people who don't quite understand that. And there's a lot culturally and historically that goes into that decision that I don't have to get into now, but you see it increasingly, with composers who are choosing to self-publish and completely own and completely reap the benefits of their own work. And I think it's, like I said, it's not something that all of us can do all of the time in every way, for sure. But when and where I have been able to do it, I see the benefits and appeal of doing it that way for sure.
So this album is available on all streaming platforms. It's also available for purchase.
Hmm.
So just go give it a little listen. And now all of you who have joined the consortium have a reference recording for these pieces by Mason Bynes, Connor Chi, Kate Kinskis, and Bryn Solomon.
Absolutely. And full disclosure, we do not get the money when you purchase the album. So if
Sure
you're like,
don't.
should I stream or should I purchase? Completely up to you. Feel free to just keep streaming that, baby. Like you don't gotta, we're not gonna be like, and please purchase that. We don't get any benefit from that. So, do you? If you want it
Do
on
you
your
want
phone,
it on your phone or do you want to stream it? That's
yeah.
the real question.
How important is our album to airplane mode?
Yeah.
And, go from there. But
Yeah.
yeah, we see no
No
proceeds.
pressure. No pressure. So not only do we have a new album out into the world, but it's our 6-year podversary.
And what is the traditional gift for 6 years, Galeen?
It is iron, which is extremely confusing.
The internet tells me it's iron or candy, which neither one of us can have anymore.
Right. Well, I texted Jackie a couple weeks ago. I was like, the internet says that I should get you iron. Like, do I have to commission an iron artist to make you like a custom gate? Like, what is this?
And I said, no, just send me like leafy greens, like spinach and broccoli, so I can have my iron.
I'm so happy. Like 6 years ago, we just didn't think this far ahead. It's not that we didn't think that we could get this far. It's just we just didn't conceive of this far in the future.
Yeah, I feel like the whole thing has just been like, okay, next episode, and then a month becomes a year, becomes a handful of years, becomes 6 years. And I will say, to brag on us, we have not missed 1/1 or 1/15 in the entirety of 6 years. We have maintained our schedule.
I'm knocking on wood.
Yeah, I know. I just tempted fate completely.
Stop it.
So I pulled up from brides.com.
Oh, yes.
An article, Iron Anniversary Gifts That Your Significant Other Will Love. And we're not going to go through them all. But one thing I'm noticing that features very prevalently is cast iron.
That makes more sense than a custom gate.
Yes.
Why didn't I go there first?
Well, to put a double reed spin on it, are we aware of any cast iron tools? Is there such thing as a cast iron mandrel or
does it need to be seasoned?
reamer? Yeah, do you need to put it in the oven? Can someone, I know we have listeners who are more technical engineer minds. Can any of you make Galit and I a cast iron set of reed tools?
For traveling.
Yes, just to make sure that our bags at the airport weigh over 50 pounds, so we have to pay that fee.
Is there a cast iron sculpture of an oboe and bassoon somewhere?
What about a cast iron bassoon or vocal? How hard would you have to blow to get that vibrating?
Vocal. Do you think that's what the person who stuffed sand in the vocal from the last episode was trying to do? Vocal art.
Oh, a branding iron.
Like a cattle brander?
Yes, it says for BBQ, but could
Oh,
we
okay.
brand our reeds? Like, I feel like I've seen that. People who have like put their logo in
Like
with
with
a
the
brand.
tiniest sizzle.
Yes. Can someone make us a double reed dish brand of our logo? And we could put it not only on reeds, but we could just like go around our buildings and just be like zap and like brand. If any of you have seen that documentary, The Vow on HBO, we won't
Oh
get into that
no.
type of branding. But
No. What else do we have on there?
oh, here's an iron sign. So it's one of those pieces for your home, like the live, laugh, love
Hmm.
type of thing. And it's an iron sign and it says, grow old along with me. The best is yet to be.
In iron.
In iron. Yes, it's like a
Okay.
sheet of iron. And then there's like calligraphy cutouts of grow old along with me. The best is yet to be. And I know that's supposed to be about the couple saying it to each other, but right now it's the situation going on in my read case. Grow old with me. We've still got some stuff we've got to get through together, friend.
I don't have time
The
to make you any
semester's
siblings.
almost over, so I need you to grow old with me.
Could iron also be the iron lung that will be necessary for anybody doing any nutcracker runs?
Yes.
Some messiahs?
So, yeah, feel free to send us any iron-based gifts. You're paying shipping, so go all out. Yes, we'll happily take, gifts, declarations of love, or florets of broccoli.
Iron supplements would be great.
Iron supplements. Happy anniversary, Galit.
Ugh, I love you. Happy anniversary. Founded by Logan Esterling, Reed Design is pushing the boundaries of oboe and English horn reed making. They take the knowledge they've collected from hundreds of reeds and, with the power of machine learning, derive patterns and trends that accurately predict the characteristics of finished reeds while early in the sorting process. The result is quality reeds with characteristics you can count on. Using their products will save you valuable time and let you get back to what you love, making music. Visit www.reeddesign.io to learn more. That's REEDESIGN.io.
Chemical City Double Reeds is a full-service double reed shop specializing in the sale of instruments, cane, accessories, and sheet music. Double Reed Dish listeners can enjoy free shipping with code DRDISH, all caps, no spaces. Visit them in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, or online at chemicalcityreeds.com.
We are over the moon thrilled to welcome to the podcast Nanci Belmont, Assistant Professor of Bassoon at Louisiana State University. Welcome, Nanci.
Hi, Guy. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to finally be on this podcast. I've listened for a while and I'm really excited.
Oh my God, stop. You're making Jackie blush. Not me. I like it. Nanci, will you tell us how you got started on the bassoon?
Sure. Yeah. Well, so I started playing bassoon in middle school band, and I'm that breed of unicorn that didn't play anything else before playing the bassoon, no other instruments. I know that's not always the case for people, but no one in my family is a musician or musical at all. And in fact, up until middle school, I was just like, oh, I really like to sing. I sing along to Disney movies and things like that. So I was all pumped for like that sixth grade elective sheet, and I wanted to go into chorus, into choir. But my best friend was like, Nanci, you have to join band. My brother's in band, and all the cool people are in band. Right?
Famous last words.
Famous last words. So I was like, okay, I'll I'll go ahead. She was one of the few people I knew going to my middle school. So it's like, okay, I'll have a friend. And yeah, that's how things happened. I had a really wonderful middle school band director. Her name is Kathy Thompson, and she let us, instead of just being like, okay, here's an instrument, play an instrument, she took the time to show us every instrument, let us try every instrument. And so, we did a few weeks of that. And I remember seeing the bassoon and being like, that looks really cool. And again, because I didn't have a context of no one in my family is musical, they were just like, oh, that's that one from the movie Fantasia, the Disney and the broomsticks. And I was like, oh, I know that. But yeah, my band director then let us write down our top 3 things that we liked, and she would pick from that. So she didn't have a whole band full of flute players or saxophonists and things, something like that. And believe it or not, I was the only person in all of 6th grade to even write bassoon on their list. Sad. But then that's how it happened.
That's actually a really good band retention strategy.
Right?
To like really thoroughly make sure that the kids are excited about what they're playing.
Eureka.
And now to this day, I don't remember if bassoon was even first or not. It was just on there somewhere. I think I put French horn and percussion also on there.
All good options.
All good, right?
Yes.
So talk us through getting serious about the bassoon and the decision to pursue it in college and professionally.
Yeah. So again, going back to this band director that I had, she was really thoughtful about when kids showed signs that they wanted to be serious about things. And, I kind of self-taught bassoon to myself for, most of middle school. And she helped as much as she could, but was not a bassoonist. Most band directors are not. And I got to a point in 8th grade where she recommended a private teacher for me. And where I grew up, I'm from Florida originally, about an hour north of the Tampa area. That particular area, we didn't have any private teachers close by. And she recommended someone, but they were about 45 minutes to an hour away. But my parents were really supportive and did that and started in 8th grade driving me that far every week. And my first bassoon teacher was, he's in the IDRS scene. He does contraband. Some people might know him. Kevin Fuller is a lovely human being and really nurtured me early on. And helped me get.
I think I met Kevin Fuller.
Did you meet Kevin Fuller?
Yes.
He's very tall.
Yes, he is very tall.
Yeah, he's wonderful. And the thing is I run into him all the time now, and he's always so sweet, just as he was, when I was 13. But again, each one of the teachers that I had from there, I only studied with Kevin for a year and a half, I think. And then he's was like, I think you should maybe go study with someone in the Florida Orchestra. And so from there, I left Kevin and have been in touch with him ever since. But I studied with Maurizio Venturini, who was in the Florida Orchestra at the time. And he was kind of the person then that took me from, I really like playing bassoon to, you could consider bassoon being something that you pursue, as a career. I did all state a couple times in high school. But until I met him, hadn't really ever met anyone that modeled like what would being a musician look like. The only people that I knew related to music were band directors, the music teachers. And for early on, that was something that I had thought of going into as well as being a band director. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'd say, late high school was when that started happening. And because of the support that I had from both those great teachers and my parents, I got more and more exposed to the world of classical music and bassoon. I did double reed camp, which always explaining that to like non-music people is hilarious. They're like, double reed camp. And I'm like, yeah, a bunch of 6th through 12th graders, like up to like 70 of them on a college campus, just playing like Stars and Stripes Forever for oboes and bassoons in mass band.
It's a special group of kids.
It's a special group of kids. Yeah. So, So that's kind of the journey. And so the real seriousness came like going to school for music. And I did my undergrad in music performance at Florida State University.
What happened after that? You graduated from Florida State.
Yeah, Florida State, where I met Galit, actually.
That's right.
Was there.
You left out the most important part.
Yeah, we overlapped.
I remember we played on a recital together too.
We did. Yeah. There was that popped up on social media at some point. Like someone's recital, and they like took a picture of the program. But yeah, so I did my undergrad there, and I had started, going to some summer festivals and things like that. And when I was doing an undergrad, again, because thinking about what I had modeled for me of like what a career in music looked like, it went from like, oh, I don't have to, I'm not going to be a band director. Maybe I'll audition for orchestra jobs, and that's what I'll do. Cause, my high school teacher did that. And that was a lot of what, I worked on in undergrad, is learning excerpts and things like that. And, but then came time for grad school. And I ended up, I did my master's at Manhattan School of Music in New York City, and I studied with Frank Morelli there. And part of that, when I was applying for grad schools, I knew I wanted to spend some time in like a big city, and that was something that was important to me. And I was really fortunate for that. This connection and the stars aligned that I ended up where I did, because it was just the right place and the right time for me. And I did just they call it a classical master's at MSM. MSM has a few different kinds of specialized masters that you can do. You can get one in like contemporary bassoon or orchestral bassoon, but I just did the middle of the road bassoon there. And that was a really interesting time for me, because then my eyes opened even more as to, oh, okay, it's not just orchestra playing I could do. I had this teacher that was, he's made this whole career out of like, yeah, he played in, New York City Opera, but was a soloist and a teacher and a freelancer and all of this, and a chamber musician. And that kind of made this light bulb go off in my head that I really like those things too. And I would love to try and pursue that a lot more. And so further from that, a master's degree goes by like that. You finish 1 year and then you're just like, oh God, what do I do next? And in the middle of that, I was sitting there and being like, okay, well, do I want to be in school more, or do I want to, because moving to New York, part of the fun thing is that I tried to start freelancing even when I was in school. They weren't good gigs, but they were things. And so I was like, I want to stay here, I think. I did the like, I'll try to apply for New World, but other than that, I also was like, oh, maybe I'll apply for a doctorate. Was not on my mind at all, by the way. So I was like, I'll apply for a performance diploma. Maybe I'll do the orchestral performance diploma just to be a little more well-rounded. And I think I applied for some other things, but one of the things that I did apply for, which I ended up being accepted to and doing, was this program called, at the time it was called Ensemble ACJW. It's now called Ensemble Connect. And what that is, it's like New World. It's a fellowship program. But instead of for orchestral performance, it's for, it's basically meant to train the 21st century musician. And so it's a chamber music based fellowship program that is also focused on teaching artistry and entrepreneurship. And so that's a 2-year program that immediately after my master's, I ended up doing while still kind of freelancing and whatnot. But it, things becoming more and more formative, that was the big like, aha, like this is that, because it then had that really nice balance of like chamber music being the thing that really resonated with me. It's where I started playing a lot more contemporary music, which I wasn't exposed to that much in school. And it's now has become a huge part of what I do professionally. And it also introduced me, I had done a little bit of teaching here and there, but just not only teaching artistry and going into public schools and speaking, but just teaching in general, and how teaching could be a formative part or an integral part of my career rather. So yeah, that was 2 more years of things. And then rather than being like, okay, I'm going to deep dive into the world again, I was freelancing, I was regularly doing things, but then I was like, okay, I like, maybe I will do a doctorate. Like I like teaching and I'll have that there as an option, you know? And so I did my doctorate at Stony Brook University, where I again studied with Frank Borelli, who I had studied with for my master's, and did that over the course of the next 5 years while working and freelancing in New York. And so that's kind of the arc of my training.
Before we dive into your professional life, you were the second place winner of the July Fox competition in, was it 2016? Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I would love to hear a bit about that experience. That's a huge accomplishment, but also, to be a little controversial, Americans don't tend to dominate that particular scene. And so I'm interested in, your experience and your preparation and what you learned, and talk to us about that a little bit, maybe.
Yeah. Preparing for the July competition was one of the more intense experiences I've ever gone through. And I think, excuse me, I pushed myself more than I think I ever had during that time. I am someone that has been throughout my life like a voracious opportunity grabber, and I'm always I'm an avid Googler. I'm always just like, what's open? What can I do? What can I try? And at the time, I saw I had applied to one July before that, just to put that out there. I applied for the 2014 July competition. And that was a good learning experience for that, because it taught me a lot about, okay, I thought that was a pretty good recording, but maybe I need to prepare at an even higher level. And so for leading up to that, this isn't everyone's experience, but I can talk about mine. I planned very thoroughly how early I wanted to know that rep, not just before a recording deadline being in March or something. Okay, I need to know it by March, but you need to play that on a recital by November, and then let it rest, and then come back to it with fresh eyes, with fresh ears, and maybe at an even deeper level. Because for that competition, I mean, rep varies from year to year, but there's usually something fairly difficult on it, if not a lot of it fairly difficult. And that year was no exception. I remember the Isang Yoon monologue, the Crusel concertino, the Schumann fantasy Stück, and what else? The Dard, one of the Dard sonatas. But yeah, so
the one that goes. Yep, I remember because that's the first time I heard your playing, and I was blown away. I specifically remember that fast Dard movement being so impressed.
That one where you have no time to breathe, in the entire page. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, so again, I dove all into this, thinking okay, well, I'm in the middle, I'm doing a DMA right now, and so I'm gonna do this all on a recital at the end of November. And then I went, I have to write a theory paper about something. I'm going to analyze Dard. I'm going to analyze that piece for this. And I think that deep level of preparation was such a good thing, because then, like I said, I got to take some time, and I listened to my performance recording from that November recital that I gave, and I was like, that wasn't ready. Well, at least, to a level of competition, it was on my school recital. And then, so fast forward to, I'm still actively practicing some things. I took some time off over the holidays, but, I think, my recordings were made in March. And so I spent a good amount of time still working on these things, taking my time, practicing things slowly, listening to a whole bunch of recordings, and getting to a place where not only did I feel like it was technically there, but I had explored like all facets of what I musically wanted to say. Because I think, coming back to what you guys were talking about, Americans not traditionally dominating that. Like, what are the, Europeans are used to, they're probably European listeners on here. They do competitions a lot more than us, I think, sometimes. And there's a different mindset, I think, to competition playing sometimes than I just have to get this all exactly right mindset that we sometimes get with orchestral auditions playing. That's not to say I think the people that do win orchestra auditions are incredibly musical players and it's there, but that's the thing I think that's sometimes missing for people who are wanting to seriously pursue competitions, is to not only play it well, but say something with it while you're doing it. Yeah. So then there was, the same kind of like break between I sent in my recordings. I was like, we'll see what happens. And then you get like they announce it in end of May or something. And then it depends on when IDRS is. So I remember there was a very intense third round of preparation of that, from when they announced the finalists for it to when the conference took place, which I think was just like in early July that year. It changes every summer, but yeah. I remember though, that was, I have a few performances and things that stick out in my brain as like, that was really cool. And that one, I just remember being like, oh my gosh, like, what am I doing here? but not in a bad way, not in a, like, I don't think I deserve it way, but in a, like, I have dreamed of doing this. I applied once and it didn't happen. And, yeah, it felt really cool. I had, there are videos I think that float around the internet still, like, or at least on the IDRS website from that. And I think once since then I've watched it. I have a hard time watching myself, like listening to myself, but I've watched it once. And actually, the longer time goes on, sometimes you look on yourself with kinder eyes and things, because, it was a good performance. I can remember getting off stage and being like, like about a couple of things. But I just remember when I did finally watch it and listen to it, like laughing because I could tell what was going on in my mind. Like there's one place where I like turn a page and smile or something, and it looks like, oh, she's really happy. But in my mind, I'm like, okay, here we go. We're going to smile.
Okay, so you are doing your doctorate at Stony Brook. How did you make it to Louisiana State University?
So I finished up my doctorate, and I think even before I finished my doctorate, I had started teaching both privately in New York, and then adjunct teaching at some colleges and schools in the wider area. And so I think my teaching started with younger students. I had a studio of people at a school called Special Music School in New York, which is an art school. And then I got a position a few years later at the Nanci School of Music, which was a bit of a commute. It's in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And so that was my real first like teaching gig. And I also taught at Malloy University in Long Island, or Malloy College rather. And so, yeah, I had been doing those things even before I finished my doctorate. And it was after I finally finished the doctorate that I considered like, okay, well, what do I want to do with this? And where do I want to go with this? Because I liked some of the things that I was doing freelancing, but I knew I wanted to have teaching as a bigger part of what I did also. And so, yeah, I was just kind of keeping my eye on some things that were opening up as they came up. Put in a few applications for things here and there. And the big unspoken thing right now is I finished my doctorate in 2019 and then COVID. And so there wasn't a lot happening there. So this was actually one of the first things that came up for me, like coming out of the pandemic, or, we're in the pandemic still, but coming back to doing more work was this job coming up. And I remember being like, that's somewhere that I could see myself being. And Yeah, that whole process was a whirlwind. Like I like doing I had done one like on campus kind of day like for a teaching job before, but this one was I had just had COVID like 2 weeks before I went down
Oof.
to LSU.
Oh
So
no.
that was a time.
You really strike me as a person who takes, in a good way, takes herself seriously, like takes your ambitions and desires seriously. And I think that's actually a really rare quality. Um, oh, someday I would love to be able to do that, or maybe someday I'll be good enough for that. But you really believe you can, and then you do. Um, and I also noticed when you talked about your bassoon upbringing, you took your mentors seriously and you took the example that they were setting for you seriously. And I would love to hear your advice for um, students and young professionals who maybe don't take their desires as seriously. Do you know what I mean? It like you just know you can and then you do it.
Like
And
the
Yeah.
value of
I
that
think
mindset.
yeah, and I think it's pretty difficult to get there sometimes.
Yeah, and especially because it's that you mentioned that like belief that you can, and I don't think for some people that comes more naturally than others, and I wouldn't say that I'm someone that like inherently goes like, yeah, I can do that, like that's gonna work for me, but it's this kind of training of mental mindset of like um kind of I don't know, at least seeing the opportunity and seeing the possibility of it. There's this saying in improv comedy, like, yes, and idea, which means that, someone says something and even if it's absolutely ludicrous, like you just take it and go with it rather than shooting it down. And I think so coming back to what you're saying about advice for students and people, I think that is inherently kind of how I have thought about pursuing opportunities and pursuing and furthering what I'm doing in my career and what I would advise students to do as well. It's something that I've lived by as a performer. Even if it scares you or if you think that it's a long shot, try it and not just like, oh, I'm going to dip my toe in and try
That's
it
the
to the
difference.
absolute best of your ability, like
Yeah, I think that's the
wholehearted.
difference.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're like, I'm gonna try it. And then you really, really go for it.
Yeah, because if you have it in your mind that I'm going to try it, but I have no chance. Like you're manifesting that a little bit in your head
Mhm.
and so it's the same kind of thing where it's just like, I want to play that piece, but like, gosh, that's way too hard. I could never play that. It's, well, how do any of us advise students to go into that? Well, like take the smallest bit, um, and then work outwards from there. Like there might be something, okay, it's something that seems impossible. You can find a manageable chunk from it and then try and grow from there. And I think the same way, again, like coming back to just opportunities, like you don't, how did I get to somewhere like LSU? It's, I didn't just, roll out of school and go, okay, I want to apply for this job. I think both in short-term goals and in long-term goals. And in pursuing these things, it's not just jumping into them wholehearted, but thinking about the goals and setting them. I am an avid list maker and an avid goal setter, and I think that's no goal is too absurd. Because then you find the steps to work backwards from that. Like, okay, I want to be, some things could be, I could make a really long shot idea from now too, but then you could at least try and trace steps back from that afterwards on how to go and do that.
Could we hear a little bit about City of Tomorrow?
Yes, City of Tomorrow. That's some of my favorite people. The City of Tomorrow is a new music wind quintet. So we are dedicated to the performance and expansion of the wind quintet repertoire. I've been in the City of Tomorrow, though not an original member. I've been in the City of Tomorrow since 2015, which is already 7 years, which is crazy. Yeah, we're such an eclectically wonderful group of human beings. It's my favorite project. And we get together a few times a year and do tours. We came up with an album just not this past summer, but the summer before, called Blow, that featured some of the pieces that we had been regularly performing for years. And what I love about it is that, like, you know, the wind quintet as a genre, it's not inherently like old. A lot of our pieces are on the newer side. Like our standards, quote, I'm doing air quotes right now. Our standards are like Barber and Hindemith. And like, so it's not like we're dealing with having to, like, you know, claw people out of playing music from, you know, the classical era or anything like that. But it's still like we've made, like, a lot of wind quintets have made this box of like, well, this is our stuff now. And so we've, you know, the genesis of the group, when the group started, was you know, going into school libraries and finding the wind quintets that were like commissioned in the 70s and 80s that like got one performance and then were never played again, or were rarely played again, and kind of breathing new life into these works. And so, you know, in the previously mentioned album that we have, shameless plug, that came out, one of the pieces on it is this work that the group has been playing for 10 years. They won Fish off, you know, I wasn't in there at the time, but with this piece, it's a piece by Franco Donatoni called Blow. Very hard, very complex, but really cool. And believe it or not, it was written in the 1980s, and the City of Tomorrow gave the North American premiere of it in 2010. Oh. Yeah. So it's combination. We do things like a combination of that. And then on that album was, a commission of ours. We also commission, and that's an important part of what we do, by Hannah Lash. I think they go by Hand Lash now. Is called Leander and Hero, and we won a Chamber Music America classical commissioning grant to for this piece. And it's a beautiful, like, mammoth 40-minute work for wind quintet, all centered around the idea of climate change, and but telling the story with these two birds that are in love and how they, like, you know, climate change has displaced them. That's a wonderful. And then we also have this Esapeka Salin and wind quintet on there. Rarely played because it has like 2 minutes of contra doubling at the end, but it is one, right?
Pass.
Travel around. I promise it's really cool though. Like, everyone should go take a listen. Like, well, because so it's called Memoria, and the last 2 minutes, like, he felt like he really needed to use contra, I guess, because it's a chorale in memoriam to Luciano Berio. So anyways, yeah, contra. But as I said, the City of Tomorrow is, we're out there doing things, still doing commissions. One of our interesting projects coming up for next season is that we are commissioning George Lewis to write us a piece for wind quintet and electronics. So look out for that.
Okay, so switching gears, let's talk about you as a teacher. When you look at the musical climate in the United States right now, what are some skills that you feel that young musicians should look to develop in their own musicianship, scholarship, ambitions?
Yeah, I think regardless of anything, one of the major points of my teaching is not only developing skills, but encouraging curiosity and creativity in what you're doing. And it's not just an environment. Studying music is not just an environment where you're a technician and learning your craft, but you're learning how to not only teach yourself for the rest of your life, because, you know, as we all know, when we leave school, you're not done. You don't just like come out of the oven and then it's just like, okay, you're a fully formed musician. Like, you know, you're still like actively learning, you're still, you know, growing. And that's like, could be really frustrating, but it's also really beautiful too. I remember, just as a small tangent, being frustrated about something when I was in doing my master's and like being like, ah, Mr. Really, like, when do I not have to think about this anymore? And he's just like, Nanci, I'm 60 something years old and I still think about that every day. Mm-hmm. And again, you could turn that negative and be like, oh, that's so frustrating. But like, yeah, we're all there. We're all doing it. But back to, you know, what skills for today for students, besides like creativity, curiosity about things, I think flexibility, you know, not just being, you know, entering a degree being like, I want to play orchestra music, or even entering a degree being like, I just want to make weird sounds. Being, yes, cultivate those things, be curious about them, but try and explore as much as you can. There's so much out there now and so much access to everything that there's no reason why you can't become super knowledgeable in a whole range of things. And that's not only going to make you a more, you know, speaking from like the professional side of things, a more marketable musician, but it's going to make you a more well-rounded musician. It's, you know, the more that you can take the skills that you learn to play Mozart and how we talk about phrasing and apply them just as wholeheartedly to a piece that was written yesterday. That's where I want my students to be. And that's where I think that students should be in general. And so as a part of that, like, yes, I think students should be, and I think that it's moving there slowly, is expanding repertoires to reflect that in what we're teaching. And what students are going out there and playing in recitals, in auditions, in everything. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Switching gears a little bit, you are a light singer performing artist. Can we hear a bit about the bassoon you play and how it found its way to you?
My bassoon. Yeah, sure. I got my bassoon in 2019. It is a Lightsinger Model 1. Lightsinger has a Model 1 and Model 2 professional instrument. And my particular instrument, I bought following the Tampa IDRS. It was actually one of the floor models there. But I had gotten to play it a little bit beforehand. The idea was there. The thoughts were in my brain that I was going to try and get another instrument. But again, going back to I guess thinking on my personality now, when I go into something, it's like, you know, all in. And so when I was looking for bassoons, I was like, okay, I'm going to try everything. I got 2 Heckles on trial. I've got a Puchner. I've got a Walter. I've got a this. And because I really wanted to know, I knew, you know, I studied with Mr. Morella and he was already playing a Lightsinger bassoon. And I had a few friends that were playing them at the time already. And so I knew that would be a really simple answer to go do, but I wanted to make sure that it was the right one for me. So yeah, IDRS 2019 for me was a lot of like, let me take this bassoon. Let me take this bassoon. I left with, you know, I tried a whole bunch of things and I left with that Lightsinger and a Heckel. I think it was a 9. And then I had those for a couple of weeks where I did some really more intense playing and thinking. And the actual purchase ended up being a little later because then I sent it back to Stefan Leitzinger and he did some adjustments on it for me. But yeah, that process was an interesting one. And the process of breaking in an instrument was actually something interesting for me because I had never played on a brand new bassoon before. Mm-hmm. So that was nice because prior to my Leitzinger, I played on a 601, a Fox 601 for years. Lovely instrument. Yeah, the kind of growing pains of like, you know, an instrument opening up, things shift as it, so you're seeing your repairman a little more than at least for me, than I regularly did, just getting things to seal. and for me, a large part of my breaking in process was during COVID then. So it's like people didn't have to hear it.
It's a blessing in disguise.
A little bit. Yeah. So I've had it for 3 years now, and I'm like, over this past year, have really just gotten to the place now where I'm feeling like, oh yeah, this feels good. This is nice. And what I really love about my instrument is that it's, oh man, my, a lot of my philosophy in playing and teaching is about sound and like trying to just get the most warm and resonant sound possible. And so this bassoon felt like a really good match, like the Harry Potter finding your wand thing, because it felt like really easy to sing into and not have to like work so hard to find this resonance in particular notes. And oh, there's notes here. It felt really even. It felt really, it felt right. Yeah.
Can I ask you about your relationship to performance anxiety? I really do love your playing, and I'm trying not to sound like a butt kisser. But Galit can contest. Separate from speaking to you, I genuinely love your playing. And when I listen to you play, it is imbibed with a conviction, and to watch you play is very dynamic. And mostly I've seen you play in other high stakes places where there's a bunch of other bassoonists in the room when I'm most likely to crawl back into my shell or feel very uncomfortable or vulnerable. And so, yeah, I'd love to hear your approach to being on stage because it's something I really admire about you as an artist.
Well, thank you. I mean, I have a hard time taking compliments, so thank you. But it's performance anxiety is something that we could do a whole podcast on. You could probably multiple times, right? And talk about how people work through that. Sometimes it's funny when people find people that they think are like, oh, tell me how you're doing that, like blah, blah, blah. I think sometimes it comes from a place of like, they have to work through it a bunch because I have struggled a lot over my musical career early on, even leading up through these major events that you're talking about with performance anxiety and even, in the imposter syndrome, that kind of thing up to here. And I don't think either of those things are something that you can overcome. Like you can't flip a switch and turn it off. It's something you learn to mitigate and manage. And for me, being on stage, I've had to kind of retrain my mindset about performing. And over the years, then it's gotten a little easier. It's gotten a lot easier. But it was a long journey up until that. And so for me, the mindset thing was just really trying to separate my ego, and not ego being the like, ha, me, but like the idea of ego, the self, out of performing, it's not that I'm going in front of this room of bassoonists to show them how good of a bassoonist I am, but to instead share with them how much I really am excited about and love this music that I'm about to play for them. And in doing that, sometimes it feels great. And then sometimes in doing that, you feel a little bit like you're putting on a character. But I think either of those is okay because we're not always going to be in a place where we feel 100% about what we're doing. And so, yeah, sometimes it's like, here I go, I'm singing to everyone. And sometimes it's like I'm writing a character word on top of, the piece of music that I'm going to do. I know I definitely did that during Gillet. I had my little notes all over the place of like what I'm a stage actor right now and what character am I going to give through my music. But yeah, serving the music, I think is kind of usually what I come back to. I think I'm an overly excitable person, and I get really excited about the things that I like and the things that I'm into. And so I'm really into music and not just like, oh yeah, I like music, but like I'm really into like how can I take this phrase and turn it into something that's like song, into something that's like has a meaning, has an impact. And so yeah, I think the idea of having those characters doing those things, you know, and then there's little things along the way, like, okay, we actually sometimes do, for when we get anxious, have physical things that manifest, and how do we get over, I'm having a hard time breathing right now, or I'm getting, you know, really shaky. And I've noticed, though, for me over the years, that those physical things were a much bigger part of it early on, and the longer that I did things, the more I just put myself in performing situations, and the more I tried to just separate what I thought other people would think about what I'm doing from it, the better it became. I don't know if it would be an interesting tangent here to say, but like, you know, in addition to, you know, bassoon was the first thing that I played, but I am one of those people that like to do what I like to do. And so when I was in high school, I got to finally get my singing in, and I did musical theater. And I always found it really interesting when I did that, because in high school, even for bassoon, I had all these people like starting to say like, oh, you're good at bassoon. Are you going to go to school for bassoon? Are you going to do that? And so playing bassoon had started to make me very nervous, because I felt like I was having to live up to this expectation.
You had eyes on you.
I had eyes on me. I went to go do like Peter Pan or like A Christmas Carol, like on stage. And it was just a pleasant surprise. Oh, she can sing. Like, and so it was just, it took that, pressure off of it, and it was fun. And yeah, I try and think about that a lot when, as, you know, a professional and adult now. It's just like, how do we get back to that place, or how do I channel that? Because yeah, it was something that that was fun. And even though I'm doing these things as a professional now, like I have to remember that it's still something I like to do. It's something that's fun.
Yeah.
Will you sing something for us?
No. Actually, I was just talking with, you know, I have some projects coming up, and I'm in the middle of trying to get an album going, and there's some commissions there with it. And a friend of mine is I'm working with her to write me a piece, and we were kind of talking about these things and our philosophies of what we like about sound and music, and how I love song. I like thinking about the bassoon as me singing through it. And then I told her my background about singing, and she's just like, will you sing in my piece? I was like, I won't say no, because yes, but let's, yeah. Well, because again, like, talk about expectations and things, like singing for me turned into one of those things where it was like, it was so great when I was younger. Now I'm a professional, and I know professional singers, and I'm like,
Right.
why? Who would want to hear me sing?
It's not a yes and, it's a no but.
Yeah.
It's a yes. Well,
You make me. So we already got your wonderful advice. I'd love to end the interview by asking for you to share a memory, a favorite memory from a past performance.
So I think one that stands out in my head, and I think it's just because it was really special, like meaningful, is the first time that I did a full concert cycle with Orpheus Chamber Orchestra, I was so excited because I studied with Mr. Morelli, and he plays there, and I got to play with him. But I remember, well, first it was an incredibly amazing musical experience, because conductorless chamber orchestra is so empowering, so great to like just play orchestral rep like chamber music and make musical decisions with everyone. But that particular program we were doing, I think the only thing I was playing on the program was second bassoon on Mozart Clarinet Concerto. Martin Frost was playing clarinet, and it was just exquisite playing. He was playing Bassett clarinet, and but I remember being, backstage, and one of our concerts of several was at Carnegie Hall. And at that time I had done my Ensemble Connect fellowship, or I think was currently in it or had just finished it, and had played a lot like part of that fellowship is you play in Weill Recital Hall at Carnegie, and we did concerts in St. Cal Hall. But I had never played in the big hall in Stern Auditorium, the part that everyone, like when they think of Carnegie Hall, it's there. And so I remember being in the wings, like getting ready. Orpheus walks all out together, like a chamber group. And I'm standing there, and I think Mr. Morelli had said something about like, oh, but you've played. And I was like, oh, I've never played here. I've never played here before, though, in this hall. And there was just like a really special moment that was like really meaningful. And I guess I'll always remember that one. But I do have a runner up for this one, though, because I was thinking about it, because it's not as like profoundly meaningful to me, but just like was like as a fangirl thing really fun. Was that at the end of undergrad, I was subbed in the Orlando Phil a lot, and I got to play at the opening of Harry Potter World. And John Williams was conducting, and I just remember being there like, like all the actors, it was like, yeah, it was like the opening. And so they had like the whole cast of the movies there and everything. And I just remember being like, a college senior playing like contrabassoon. Like I took the FSU contrabassoon to Orlando to go to this. Yeah.
Oh, Nanci, this was so wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us. We had such a wonderful time getting to know you and asking you all sorts of personal questions.
Oh, well, thank you again for having me. Like I said at the beginning, like I listened, and this is just so fun, and you guys are wonderful. So anytime.
No, you're wonderful.
You're wonderful.
Thank you for joining us for that episode and for the last 6 years. Y'all are the best. Please grow old with us. The best is yet to be. And follow us on social media, rate and review on iTunes. Check out All Are Welcome, and join us on the 15th for our next episode. Galit, who we're going to be talking with?
We have a wonderful episode with Leslie Odom, Associate Professor of Oboe at the University of Florida. And as always, we have the best time with Leslie. So we can't wait to share that one with you. Jackie, we got to end this nerd parade.
Go consume iron supplements.
And broccoli.